Welcome to Pantdora, my 1,000-gallon cloud rainforest vivarium. This majestic and tropical montane kingdom is a biological project of mine, designed to study the fauna living within it, from warring ants, termites, grasshoppers, crickets, roaches, spiders, beetles, worms, lizards, and other creatures. The rainforest inhabitants within all cohabit Pantdora and interact with one another, forming a rainforest ecosystem within glass. However, as impressive and biodiverse as Pantdora is presently, it's still incomplete. You see, in the eastern part of Pantdora exists a spring that feeds a blackwater cave system full of nutritious tannins from wood that create a natural tea that has become vital to the inhabitants of Pantdora. Ants visit the pond from afar to drink this tea to exploit its valuable nutrients. But crickets and other insects have been drowning in these waters, which in a normal ecosystem would be dealt with by water creatures that were still lacking in Pandora's waters. And so, my chosen team of aquatic creatures were already waiting on the sidelines to be added into the blackwater system. But this week, the addition of my team of aquatic beasts into the Pandoran waters also marked the reawakening of a great war of the ant superpowers within Pantdora. And all I could do was watch in horror as one ant superpower initiated the demise of not one, but two valued colonies we've been following within the rainforest. This is the craziest story of what happened when I stalked the waters of my cloud rainforest vivarium with life, and the great ant war between three ant teams reignited within our vivarium. And I promise you, you guys will be screaming by the end of this video. Welcome to part 8 of my Ecosystem Vivarium Series, here on the AntsCanada Ant Channel. Please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon. Welcome to the AC fam. Enjoy. Within this jar sat two very special tree frogs, freshly collected from around my outdoor pond. I'm not sure if they were a mated pair, but they sure looked like a male and female, and were both huddled in my pond's circuit breaker, powering the filter. Have no fear, beloved tree frogs, for I have a tropical paradise prepared for you. Come with me. The frogs hopped around as I unscrewed the cover of the jar. I removed the cover, and suddenly the frogs leaped into Pantdora. They didn't know it yet, but this place was a bountiful Shangri-La for frogs like them, and they were the first of the water-type beasts to be added into the rainforest, with the rest of the aquatic team about to follow them. The male ended up hopping right up to the glass, and I was a bit shocked at how skinny he was. But no worries, Kermit, that's his name. I can guarantee you will find the food you've been searching for here in Pantdora. Go have fun. And I was right, for Pantdora had grown into quite the healthy rainforest ecosystem over the past month that it had for its life to mature and biodiversify. Jumping spiders hunting up high in the vines, new ground plants sending up new flower stalks, a random wasp that I spotted that came from who knows where, and mushrooms. And look, a trail of ants, our resident marauder ants, a native ant species, were seen trailing along the forest floor. Over the past few weeks, they've been feeding quite well in this rainforest, picking up dead insects along the forest floor and dragging them home into their nest within the Hallelujah tree stump. But this morning, I noticed a commotion happening at the tree stump. What could be happening here? After snooping around, I spotted this adult dubia roach, who had just been kicked out of the stump by the ants and was now sulking. In a daze, it wandered around for a bit, hoping to find another suitable hole to crawl into to get back to sleep, only to return back to the same hole. Guys, can we negotiate something? Nothing beats this hole. I mean, I can offer you some poop. Do you guys eat poop? Whoa! Lost its footing. Guess it's sleeping on the floor tonight. But with Pandora's resources growing more and more robust by the day, also came an inevitable competition for these resources. Black crazy ants, an invasive species of ant who recently moved into the Hallelujah stump too, were seen trailing towards the back of the stump. What were these ants up to? I had a feeling it was trouble. I did some inspecting, and their trail led me here, to a place along the forest floor. A rotting piece of mango, which was part of a scheduled ecosystem event, as outlined in Part 3, which mimicked a piece of tropical fruit fallen from the treetops above. It already hosted a collection of molds, fruit flies, and ants. The black crazy ants had found it and were already quietly feasting on the delicious sweet mango flesh. It seems the marauders didn't have a taste for mango, but to the black crazy ants, it was like fruit gold fallen from the skies. I didn't think much of it at this time, but little did I know, this fruit feast was part of a grand master plan that the black crazy ants were preparing for. You see, the ants were actually carving up before their big event, an event of dominion that I totally didn't see coming. AC family, behold, my freshwater community nature aquarium called Meadow of the Dwarves. This 75-gallon freshwater community aquarium was fully decked out with dozens of fish species, snails, and shrimp, as well as a huge array of plants and gorgeous grass and mosses growing everywhere. This was my old planted nature aquarium from a previous episode on this channel. During the pandemic, aquascape and aquariums kind of became my pandemic hobby. Okay, my obsession. But as stunning as it was to have an aquarium like this, it was hands down a ton of work and super high maintenance, which was easy because we were all locked down at the time with nothing else to do. This tank required daily dosing of an array of fertilizers, carbon dioxide diffuser, an air stone, not one but 2 filters, water skimmers, special lights, various fish foods fed daily, weekly water changes, and gear for the constant monitoring of water parameters. Fish tanks are one of those hobbies you can end up investing a lot of time and money into, the bigger and more complex you want to go. However, because of the nature of my intentions for Pantdora, which is to be a heteronymous ecosystem, refer to Part 3 for more on that, with little maintenance and input from me, the approximately 25-gallon water portion of Pantdora had to be as low-tech as possible. At most, it had a filter powering the waterfall, and that would be about it. The filter consists of a bag of ceramic biofilter, which hosts the necessary bacteria needed for clean waters. More about that later. Borrowed from my other paludarium setup, Volcania, all enclosed in a chamber of sponge surrounding the intake of the pump, which sends water to the top of the rock wall feeding the waterfall. Food for the creatures would need to come from Pantdora, the cleaning of the entire aquatic world and mechanical filter sponge would need to be done by the aquatic creatures of Pantdora themselves, and there would be no water changes, or if ever, very minimal. So AC family, with this in mind, here were my choices for an initial team of water beasts to inhabit Pandora's cave water system. First, snails. Nerite snails to be exact, 3 of them. Here's one, and the other 2 are back there, piggybacking each other. These snails are great at eating algae and organic material on the glass and surfaces. Next up, guppies. These were also collected from my pond, and I find they're excellent at eating random bits from water, small insects that might fall in and float around, and breed very quickly. They've also got some pretty colors, and look to me like mermaids. I know they will love Pantdora. Next are some of my favorite crustaceans, cherry shrimp. These shrimp are great at consuming biofilm and edible bits within the water, and in the right environment will readily breed. In fact, look, they already are. See the babies? Finally, by popular request from you, AC family, in my community tab, crabs. These are a colony of freshwater crabs native to where I live. I don't know the exact species, but I am confident they will do well in Pandora's blackwater cave system, particularly due to the rocks, which is totally their niche. These make up my initial team of aquatic creatures. What do you guys think? Alright, now before we go ahead and add them in, I needed to prep and revamp our pond area to better suit our new arrivals. So here was our current cave water system. It has since gotten a bit too dark now, so my plan is to do a water change to lighten the water a little. It will still have some tannins in the water though, so our animals both on land, drinking the water, and our creatures living in it can benefit from the blackwater properties. You see, blackwater tanks are special, and aquarium hobbyists opt for blackwater tanks, i.e. water that contains tannins leached from driftwood or dead leaves, for a few reasons. First, as mentioned, the blackwater is healthy for the fish that naturally live in blackwater systems. The snails, the guppies, the shrimp, and the crabs all come from waters littered with leaves and branches from nearby trees that fall into the water and leach tannins into it, giving the waters in their natural habitat a darkened tea color, like the waters of Pantdora. This blackwater, as hobbyists call it, has been known to help prevent infections in fish and even causes colors to become more vibrant in some fish, like bettas. Many fish and other aquatic creatures that are shy by nature, like neon tetras, feel more at ease in the darkness of blackwater systems, and it can even stimulate breeding. Another reason blackwater tanks are great is because of reduced algae growth, since there is less light penetrating it, perfect for this water system, which won't be getting a lot of water changes. A final reason hobbyists love blackwater tanks is because blackwater tanks are a total vibe. You guys will see, once this water system is fully planted and our creatures are in, it looks extremely natural and very moody. Alright, and now that the water system has been partially drained, I needed to create a rock cliff, particularly for the crabs, which will want to crawl onto land. There we go, a rock slope for our crabs to climb to head to land. Next, time to add plants. In low-tech setups, plants are quintessential, as they, along with the filter bacteria, will eat up the toxic ammonia and nitrates that result from fish poop, decaying insects, and dead leaves that fall into the waters. And with little to no water changes, plants will be our true heroes. But I needed to choose a species that grows well under low light due to the blackwater. Anubias are my favorite for such conditions. Plus, they don't need soil and can just grow attached to wood, as seen here. I planted the wood with attached anubias all around. Next, I replaced the water. My tap water comes from a natural aquifer, so no chlorine, and the parameters happen to be perfect for our fish. Next, I added duckweed. This was collected again from my outdoor pond. Most hobbyists hate this stuff because it can completely cover a tank surface and get annoying. But in this case, because it's a low-tech setup, I will need those extra ammonia nitrate eaters working overtime, and duckweed rocks for that, especially once it multiplies. Next, I added frogbit, another cute floating plant, and dwarf floating lettuce. And the final result looked like this. Behold Aqua Noctis, the name given to our newly improved cave blackwater system of Pantdora. The darkened waters created a naturalistic vibe from all angles of the tank. Have a look. Even the banyan vines were rooting, which means more ammonia and nitrate eaters to keep the waters clean. Aqua Noctis had plenty of dark and shadowy places for the creatures to hide within the rockwork, if they so chose. And so, the water world was now set. All the floating plants were set, and it was time to add in the animals. Let's do this. Snails, come hither. In you go. Done. Another snail already in the pond came by to check out the new snails in town. Next, our guppies. After acclimation, I released the mermaids into the waters. I held my breath as they began to swim around and curiously explore their strange new home, and soon, their instinct kicked in, and the fish began to group together and school. I love when fish school. There's just something beautiful and hypnotic about it. I just love the colors, which I knew would only get better and more vibrant with time, now that they were in black waters. And then, the fish began to show signs of hunting. It's now the shrimp's turn. Let's go, my shrimpies. After acclimation, I released our shrimp. The shrimp gracefully floated to the bottom. Whoa, what is this place? The shrimp thought. Some shrimp instantly began to feed on decaying leaves fallen from the plants above the waters. Others began to swim to explore. Other shrimp began cleaning biofilm from the rocks. And finally, it was time to add the crabs. Come with me, crabbies. I have a brand new kingdom for you to frolic and feed from. I shook the crabs into the dark waters of Aqua Noctis, and all was set. Our cave water system was finally complete, and I knew our newly improved and populated water system would grow in beauty to become truly epic, once all our aquatic beasts were properly settled in. Night fell upon Pantdora, and the rainforest's spiritual mists were blowing through the lands. It was the first night for our tree frogs, and I was eager to see how they were doing. Within some ferns, I spotted a pair of eyes looking out into the night of a strange land it had never before seen. It was our female frog, and she was ready to emerge to begin hunting. When I spotted her out and about in Pantdora, I was awestruck how beautiful she was in the misty moonlight. I named her Miss Piggy, healthy and robust. I was so moved seeing Miss Piggy preparing to hunt for prey exactly as she would in the wild. I felt like we had this unique and special peek into the largely private behaviors of this tree frog. She fit right into Pantdora. Also emerging, up in the vines, was Kermit, who seemed entranced at the new world he had no idea how he stumbled into. Last he remembered, he and Miss Piggy crawled into a metal box. The various forest roaches were all emerging at this hour, up in the canopy, rummaging through the moss, and hanging out on the vines. Lady Katie, our bush cricket, was wide awake, in search of something leafy to eat. Kermit hadn't had a meal in ages, but on this night, he was determined to catch something, and he currently didn't have his eye on the roaches. Our young grasshopper, whom we've been watching grow from just a tiny nymph, moved leg by leg, slowly up the vine, just as he did as a baby grasshopper. This technique kept him alive in Pantdora all this time, but then he noticed someone staring at him from the vines. Oh boy. On second thought, he suddenly decided to reverse his slow-mo crawl and moonwalk back down the vine to a safer location. Smart move, young grasshopper. In the shadows of some monstera leaves lay one of our house geckos, sitting still, awaiting for prey to come to it. It had eaten quite a bit since moving into Pantdora last week, and didn't mind waiting for food to approach. I always marveled at these geckos' eyes, feet, and tail. But though our gecko was willing to sit still, Kermit wasn't, and I caught him in the canopy, now in search of prey. He leaped onto the glass, where he looked around and crawled stealthily in search of any tiny movements. He had excellent vision in the dark. I could see the outline of his skinny body. Poor Kermit. I hope he managed to find some food on this night. Another possibility is that he and Miss Piggy may have paired up and recently mated, during which time males piggyback on the females, and might not be able to eat during the whole course of the breeding process, which could take days, while females still can feed. Anyway, Pantdora had plenty of prey for him, and to my surprise, we would soon see evidence of Kermit's innate hunting prowess. It was time to see how our aquatic beasts in Aqua Noctis were doing. I spotted shrimps grazing on debris from the banyan vines. So were crabs. I just love watching crabs eat. They're super cute. It was neat watching this male crab lurking in the shadows beneath the falls. In fact, several crabs seem to enjoy being near the freshly purified waters beneath the falls. These waters from the falls were also freshly oxygenated due to the turbulence from the water falling down the rocks. The snails were busy exploring and scraping the rocks of microscopic algae. Strangely, I didn't see any crabs on land yet. Weird. Perhaps soon. It was interesting seeing the crabs ignoring the fish, as I was a bit worried they might try to eat them, but instead fuss amongst themselves over crawling room and other food to eat. I watched our mess of crabs with amusement, and yes, a group of crabs is called a mess of crabs, but they weren't messy, usually cordially sorting out space and feeding zone issues with swift acts of courtesy. How Canadian of them. The fish, our mermaids, were busy night hunting as they inspected every corner together as a school. It was great to know our water beasts were feeding well. By morning, I came back to Pantdora to see Kermit just wrapping up his solo night activities. What do you guys think? A little fatter, right? I bet he managed to grab a roach or two, but now was bedtime for him as the sun rose to signal a new day. Mornings in Pantdora are just as stunning as Pandoran nights. The sun's golden rays come streaming in through the tree leaves blowing in the breeze from an east-facing window in the ant room. And every morning it bathes Pantdora in the most beautiful of light. Have a look. The whole forest floor gets 2 hours of pure morning sun, which causes our plants and mosses to rejoice. In fact, I attribute the success of all the mosses and plants in Pantdora to these first couple of hours of direct morning sun that hits them. Mosses were even starting to grow naturally in various places of the driftwood, all around. The morning dew on the ferns looked like shimmering ice crystals in a land untouched by frost. It's pretty incredible to think that a massive fiery ball of gas and plasma, some 150 million kilometers away, powers all of life on our planet. I felt grateful for that in this moment as I watched the dancing light within Pantdora. Mother Nature is just stunning, isn't she? But the morning tranquility was suddenly dispelled by a commotion happening at the other end of Pantdora. Look! Oh no! I knew the sight all too well. The black crazy ants were moving their colony. The ants hustled, rushing their brood to the top of the stump. I followed the trail to see where they were coming from. They were emerging from this hole, and that's when I spotted it. A queen! It's confirmed. The black crazy ant colony has a queen. And there's a random roach being kicked out of the stump. In fact, this colony had multiple queens. Look! 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 queens spotted in just these few seconds. This colony was massive, with hundreds of egg-laying queens that the colony amassed into existence and was about to get exponentially bigger. I couldn't believe we were seeing the black crazy ant army in full force like this for the first time. I had no idea the colony was this prolific. They marched into a hole at the top of the stump where they were setting up camp again for the second time actually. And little did I know, there was a purpose these ants wanted back in at the top of the stump. But before I could study the site further, I discovered another trail happening at exactly the same time on the opposite side of the stump. Marauder ants were traveling from an upper portion down to their usual hole. Man, this stump must be quite a labyrinth inside. I couldn't imagine what could possibly be happening within, between these two ant colonies sharing the stump. Everyone was moving. Another marauder trail was happening here at another location. Could the black crazy ants be displacing our marauders? I could only speculate. But just when I thought things couldn't get more concerning, to my complete horror later that day, I spotted this. A second trail of black crazy ants, coming from another location, assuming a satellite nest. There were more brood and queens to move? This was totally insane. And they were all headed again to the top of the stump. The sheer size of this black crazy ant colony shocked me, and all their queens. I watched in horror as the second wave of queens and brood were transported up the stump and into that same opening in the wood. What was so special about this opening that they all suddenly decided to move into there? I would soon find out, but not after our marauder lines, the black crazy ant lines, as well as a third party, would finally come together, revealing the true nature of the relationship between the ant superpowers of Pantdora later that night. In the night, I spotted Miss Piggy emerging onto one of the vines to begin her night's hunt. Kermit was also awake and totally game for a second round of feasting on the abundance of nighttime insects. But little did they know, just below them, a superheated meeting of 3 ant superpowers was happening at the stump. A third black crazy ant moving campaign was happening from a middle crevice in the stump this time. I don't understand. Another move? Are these new ants, brood and queens, moving to the top? Or are they just doing laps at this point? I then spotted another smaller ant. An acrobat ant, as seen from part 7, was also hanging around. It is a native ant, but little did I know, it was about to stir up some crazy trouble. Nearby, I also spotted a trail of marauders, also climbing the stump to the top. Man, I couldn't believe how close they were to the black crazy ant trails. who clearly outnumbered them. Not to mention the black crazy ants trying to close in from the back. The marauders bravely stood tough, facing the menacing black crazy ants, lunging at them when they got too close. This was crazy! Up until now, we had yet to see any aggression between our marauders and the black crazy ants, who we thought might actually be at peace. But no, this was the start of a crazy ant war that I feared might have an unfavorable ending for our marauders, just simply due to the sheer numbers of black crazy ants right now. A major came to make sure the coast was clear for a group of marauder workers to safely pass. The major continued to survey the scene as black crazy ants tried their luck pressing in from behind, when suddenly, the acrobat appeared on the scene. In an aggressive stance, Gaster raised over its head and quite randomly attempted to spray formic acid into the major's face, with a passing marauder in the line of formic acid fire. What? What was that? The major was startled, but wasn't fazed much, thank goodness. But then the acrobat ant went on to do the unthinkable and ran right into the dangerous rush, spraying formic acid again at all surrounding ants. This fury of acid cloud seemed to startle the black crazy ants, who turned to face the acrobat ant, who cackled, "Take that, you ants of the dark! I spray you with acid to your death!" The black crazy ants were stunned and attempted to catch the acrobat ant, who slipped away from the confusion and began to spray an oncoming marauder worker. "Take that, you heathen! Feel the wrath of my butt acids!" Which sent the worker flying in the other direction. This acrobat ant truly had balls of steel. It was tiny, but had the fortitude of a fearless warrior. I watched it head back to its colony. Eventually, the marauders decided to head back home, as I watched the major head back down the stump. Soon, only a few marauders, black crazy ants, and even an acrobat ant were seen on the stump. Rattled and a bit dazed by what I had seen, I took the time to think about what all of this meant for the future of Pantdora. I would soon make a discovery that would piece everything together and reveal the true intentions of the black crazy ant horde. The next day, I checked the top of the Hallelujah tree stump. It was calm now, no ants trailing. It was then that I made a very key discovery. At the opening into which the black crazy ants were entering in droves during their move, I noticed some brood within a hole. But that wasn't just any hole. My eyes widened when I realized that there was a hole in one of the termite tunnels. Wait a sec, did the black crazy ants manage to bore a hole into one of the termite tunnels? We saw in a previous episode that the termites, who also somehow shared this tree stump, along with the two colonies of ants, protected themselves by creating hardened tunnels of poop. And during the tunnel construction process, the termite soldiers, with guns on their faces, capable of shooting out a nauseous sticky goo to deter ants, stood guard to protect the termite workers while they constructed their tunnels. Well, it seems somehow the black crazy ants managed to break into one of the termite tunnels, and I do see pieces of dead termite body parts in there. How sad. No. Did this mean the black crazy ants completely infiltrated the termite tunnel network and eradicated the termites? I wasn't sure. But inside, I hoped the termites were at least able to seal the main tunnels leading to their queen and king's royal chamber. As long as their king and queen were safe and alive, the termite colony would be able to recover and survive. The unknowns of it all made me quite sad at the prospect that we may have possibly lost our resident termite colony. But now we knew why the black crazy ants had moved into this area of the stump. I also didn't know how our marauders were doing in there. To be honest, I haven't seen them trailing in the great numbers they used to, back when I first spotted them in here. This could be because they've been eating lots now, and therefore didn't have a need to come foraging out like they did before. Or that the stump they hitched a ride in, when I transported it here, didn't contain their queen, who may have been hidden away in the soils at the site of extraction. And the workers, who only lived for about a month, were simply all dying out naturally now. The worst case scenario was that the black crazy ants were wiping out our marauders within the stump away from our view. I didn't know, but I resolved to simply keep an eye on the marauders and see if their numbers were truly dwindling, as well as those turbo acrobat ants. They're trouble, I tell you, and I could only imagine what they were capable of in larger numbers. Regardless, Pantdora, as far as the ants go, was actually an accurate representation of what has happened in real tropical ecosystems. Invasive ants like black crazy ants have successfully invaded all tropical and subtropical ecosystems of the world, having been transported unintentionally through human activities, like via plants, exactly as we've seen happen in Pantdora. I wasn't sure how to eradicate the black crazy ants at this point. Unless some of you guys have any ideas, nothing really preys on them, except for possibly poison dart frogs. But I'm afraid if we introduce poison dart frogs who start feeding on the ants, like they do in the wild, they might develop the lethal poisons that wild dart frogs have, capable of killing multiple humans. And well, as much as I love biology and learning, I also value being alive. So I think I'll pass on the dart frogs. Unless any of you guys know something I don't know about dart frogs eating ants in captivity, I guess for now, we'll just have to learn to live with the black crazy ants dominating the rainforest. And/or hope our marauders are still okay within the Hallelujah tree stump. About the fire ants from part 5, still no signs of them surfacing. I'll surely update you guys if I do see them. The Pandoran ant war continues, I guess. In terms of the pond, I did feel hope. The tinted waters of Aqua Noctis looked crystal clear now, and its creatures within, stunning. I told you it was a vibe. I noticed a dead roach floating in the water, along with a dead leaf. These eventually sunk to the bottom of the pond, and I soon spotted the crabs munching on it. There was one piece of the roach, and there was the other half. A crab eventually discovered the decaying leaf several days after it sank and swiped it from the others to eat in private. I also spotted a crab picking at edibles from the sponge of the filter, hidden below the rocks. The shrimp were busy grazing all surfaces of biofilm and edible bits. The fish were eating up organic edibles from the banyan roots. I knew our team of floating plants, the anubias, as well as the bacteria, were all eating up the ammonia and nitrates produced by the animals' waste and decaying organic matter within the water, as well as the roots from the banyan vines, sprawled out into the waters, feeding the new leaf buds that were growing all over the canopy in Pantdora. Now that there were creatures in the waters producing greater amounts of plant food, these leaves were soon about to explode. The fish looked happy and vivacious as they swam about, with fins looking more vibrant now and healthier than ever. Together, all these organisms were working as a team, keeping our waters clean, functioning as an aquatic ecosystem. It was awesome to know that though there was tension and uncertainty on land in the ant world, life was still going to push forth and thrive in Pantdora regardless. And our newly improved cave black water system was a success. I resolved to think up more ways to add to and improve Aqua Noctis by perhaps adding other insects like diving beetles or smaller fish and shrimp in the future. The crabs never did crawl up on land. Guess their species prefers the waters, which makes me wonder if I could add other terrestrial crabs like vampire crabs into here. Let me know what you guys think. I also hoped our frogs would decide to mate and lay eggs into the waters so we could one day have a bunch of tadpoles swimming around. That would be so neat. And speaking of our frogs, after several nights in Pantdora, I looked up into the canopy just last night and spotted a fattened up Kermit, so fat that he had troubles now jumping to where he wanted to go on the thinner vines. This made me chuckle. But with the completion of Aqua Noctis, Pantdora as a vivarium was somewhat complete now, with an initial team of flora and fauna both on land and in the waters. I say somewhat because I would still continue to make improvements and add creatures and plant life into Pantdora until they were successfully proliferating and breeding without my help. I added a second round of crickets into Pantdora, and they immediately began to scatter, and the females lay eggs within the soils, thereby securing the next generation of crickets and future food for our predators. Our sun skink instantly had a feast. Kermit also woke up early due to all the crickets, but decided to hop back into the bushes once it began to rain. Pantdora was as beautiful as ever, and as I watched it rain within our rainforest, I was reminded of the fact that water was like the glue that connects all of life, for it was the place that all life began in the most beautiful way, once upon a time. And so closed another epic week in our Cloud Rainforest Vivarium of Pantdora. But AC family, it was about to get even more epic. Speaking of adding in more creatures, a lot of you have been requesting for me to add a certain creature one of great notoriety and skill. But it wasn't until this week that I was actually able to find one. And so, by popular request, it was time to finally add our newest resident into Pantdora. Perfect timing now that we had all these crickets around. Welcome to Pantdora, my friend. Go forth and indulge within these bountiful lands. My precious spiky-armed beast. Oh, Lady Deathstrike. My. Well, what do we have here? Oh, perfect. Vote in my community tab to affect this story. Hope you can subscribe to the channel as we upload every Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this video to help us keep making more. It's Ant Love forever.